Revelation 2352. From the 30th of May 1942. The power of evil does not extend over creations. No spiritual forces can express themselves which are under the influence of the evil power as long as the spiritual is still in the bound will, for God's counterforce is powerless against this beingness. It can only test itself on the soul of the human being, that is, on the spiritual which is in the stage of free will, and it does so most extensively. Thus people will always be oppressed by the God-opposing power, but they will never be able to influence creations which contain the still undeveloped spiritual substance. These creations are solely subject to God's will, and everything that takes place in these creations is attributable to His divine working. It is therefore totally erroneous to attribute phenomena to satanic power which run counter to divine order, that is, which manifest themselves in the creations. Every change in God's creation is also caused by His will, for the power of God's adversary never extends beyond that which God has allowed to arise in visible creations through His will. And therefore the working of this power can only be expressed in the human soul. By influencing the human will it can indeed cause it to be destructively active in creation, but then the human being will always be the executor, thus he will, so to speak, do something on behalf of the evil power which it cannot do itself, namely somehow act against the divine laws of nature. Therefore, if it is assumed that the power which is hostile towards God can gain people's faith by doing things which require divine strength, God would first have to give this power to His adversary, and this would not correspond to the nature of the eternal deity, which, full of mercy and love, draws close to all its creatures and would like to help them in their spiritual adversity. For it would truly not be a help if people were misled in their faith and even less able to recognize God. It would then be made almost impossible for people to believe that God would hand His creations over to the adversary, that He would not only leave them to the adversary but push them towards the one from whose power He wants to liberate them. But God's love lasts forever. He helps humanity and will always support it in the battle against evil, but He will never place His living creations in such hardship that they will assume God in the activity of the one who is His greatest enemy and adversary. The God-opposing power will always be recognizable to people who think and act lawfully, and thus they will also not have to look upon God's adversary as God Himself unless they are so devoted to Him due to their completely wrong way of life on earth which deprives them of all power of judgment. But these are no longer His children but children of Satan because they are subject to his will and completely oppose God. Amen.